Welcome to Objections with Stan Willis. I'm a friend of Stan Willis's, probably his best friend. Next to me is Stan Willis, who is my sort of friend. How are you, Stan?
I'm not sure what to say.
That was the intro of the week.
Was it the intro of the week?
I mean, that was better than what ESPN's going to do.
Did you mean it was a week intro?
Is that like your whole week or your week whole?
I don't know.
I'm just saying.
Is that week with an A, like Beatles with an A?
Week has an A in it. Oh, you mean two A's?
No, week has two E's.
Don't try
week
to,
has two E's or an A.
I thought you were trying to play it off and go, no, WAAK. Wake. That shit's whack.
No, it's WEEK.
You're on fire already.
Week or WEAK.
No. Did you see his face light up when he was like, I said, week does have an A? And he went, Listen.
I meant week with an A. I was like, what are you talking about?
I love that we do this show and we don't edit shit. I've got a question for you. You got to put your law dog hat on.
All right.
Have you ever been fired over a Zoom? Because people are getting shit canned all over the place.
I have never been fired over a Zoom.
So all these big companies.
I hate Zoom.
I do too.
I really hate remote calls.
Wait, do you like being on the phone versus the video chat?
I like being in person.
I agree with you. COVID changed everything.
I don't like talking on the phone. I've never really liked talking on the phone. It's why people are like, how often do you talk to your dad and mom? I'm like, not very often, because I get on the phone with my dad. It's like, how you doing? Fine. What are you up to? Nothing. How about you? Nothing. Okay, talk to you later.
I do that phone call once a day. I pray for that phone call.
It's like me and my dad. That's our conversation. Now, if we get together and we're in the same room, we have great conversations. But over the phone, we're both like, I just want to get off the phone.
Yeah. Well, so you've seen, I think we touched on this a few weeks ago, is that there's been these massive layoffs from big companies. And when I say that, it's 10 and 15,000 people, which sounds like a lot, except if a company has, say, 500,000 employees or something around the world.
Well, there have been a lot of layoffs. I mean, like everybody's announcing, it's like layoff season. It's weird.
But what's odd is normally it would happen in March. So your year end closes in December for most people.
Right.
So you either made your year or not. That's where the term Black Friday comes from. If you have a major year by then, you're probably not going to. So if Black Friday was sell everything you can, so we know we made our year. But in January, for those things to start happening, it looks like it's a precursor to the economy getting bad.
Could be.
But the media is not saying anything is wrong, even though housing prices are falling and layoffs are happening.
And it's weird because it's usually the kind of fringe alternative guys who are like, the sky is falling. Ah. Now it's really kind of the middle of the road mainstream guys who are saying, oh, the sky is falling. And the fringe guys are like, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Well, Michael Burry, who's famous from The Big Short, and he's a short seller and all that.
Right.
Jerome Powell was talking yesterday, and while he does it, he just writes buy, period.
Uh-huh.
Which I thought was odd, where he was saying, it's all going to crash, you should get out.
Right.
He literally said, buy now.
Right.
Which I don't understand where he's thinking this is going.
The stock market is completely detached from reality at this point. So the stock market is really just it's a casino at this point where, you're just kind of, as long as people keep the money in there, it's fine. When people start taking their money out, eventually, it's like musical chairs.
Right.
The last person is going to be sitting on the floor.
Right.
We
saw that.
It'll be more than just one person sitting on the floor. But I think the people that I'm reading that I kind of trust the most are kind of saying the economy is going to be okay through the first half of this year, and when I say okay as in like it is now, not.
So it's not humming right now,
right? I mean, I mean with the cost of things and with the job losses and the things that are going on, I'm not sure that the economy is in great shape right now. But most people aren't. I mean, we don't have people starving to death in the streets either. So I think that probably the economy is going to be okay through the first half of the year. a lot of the people are saying that they're not seeing a recession by whatever definition they use.
By whatever standard they're using.
Whatever standard we currently are using for recession, because apparently, according to the Biden administration, the long-standing traditional 200-year definition of recession is no longer the one that we use. Right. I mean, it's literally in the textbooks, but they're saying no, 2 quarters in a row doesn't mean.
I did like how they said, like, yes, that's typically what a recession would be, but not in this case.
Not in this case.
Well, what do you mean? Right. And like there was no Janet Yellen was the one saying that is a very old school definition. But if it was Trump was in the White House or DeSantis or whatever, it'd be like, we're in a recession. We've had 2 good quarters in a row.
Remember the one reporter going, it's literally in the textbook. Right. I'm holding the textbook.
Was that Steve Ducey that literally had the definition of it?
It's literally in the textbook.
Yeah. What I was more concerned about is there are people, now I don't know them personally, you're just seeing these stories and seeing these articles, but some bigger corporations, so Bed Bath & Beyond is closing like 87 stores. Right. Not 87, is it 87 stores? Nate goes there and he gets a lot of mattresses.
They're going to file bankruptcy, I think.
But they're not going to be the only one. There's a lot of people that are on the verge of bankruptcy, like Carvana. Carvana, at the time of this airing, they might be declaring bankruptcy. There are some big time companies that employ a lot of people that they're shedding people and then they're just going out of business altogether.
Right.
I've not seen it like this, let's say in a 20-year period. Like you have your 9/11s, you have your COVID shutdown, you have your housing crash. But I've not seen in terms of big companies faltering like this. I can understand your mom and pop restaurant or say a law firm that has 2 people and they break it off because it's not sustainable. But when big companies falter, that's where you have to kind of look at it and go, what the hell? Now, the stock market, when something is falling apart and you buy it, it's a long-term bet. It doesn't mean I believe in them today. It is you're failing right now, and someone's going to acquire you or you're going to fix it, and I want my money 7 years from now.
Right.
So how would an employee, if they got fired, the story I was listening to is a woman.
Like with Google, where they just had a big Zoom meeting and said, you're all fired.
Yes. But one of the people that was supposed to be on the team of letting people go, they moved her into the people that were getting let go and took all her access away. She only knew that she was on that team because she went in at 4 a.m. because they had all their stuff prepped to let them go. And she's calling and no one will return her phone call. She didn't check her email to say, and you were added to this list. Okay?
Wow.
So my question is, I've seen RIF. I don't know if you call them reduction in force. And they always did it in media like Noah's Ark.
Right.
2 young people, 2 old, 2 black, 2 white. It didn't even matter if you were good at it. It's that we have no lawsuits coming out of this because, again, we paired them off and we're going to let go of 20 people. And we'll figure out how to take care of their stuff. They all got to go at the same time. But they would turn around and hire people later. But when you're getting fired in a mass layoff, they're getting fired. Is it a layoff or they're getting fired?
It's
a layoff. You could come back.
It's typically in those mass situations, it's actually a layoff. And typically, they call it a reduction in force. Typically, it's these people are. We don't have work for you to do, and we can't afford to continue paying you while we don't have work for you to do. So you're going to be jobless, and you're not employed by the company anymore. Sometimes in those RIFs, they'll say you're not eligible for reemployment. Sometimes they say we're cutting that position, right? So we're eliminating that position permanently, or it's a restructuring.
Well, my question is, what is the difference of being fired and laid off? Because I don't think people get fired anymore.
Well, okay, so the distinction, it's really you're being terminated or you're being terminated for cause. If you're being terminated for cause, like you broke a rule, you're not performing, something like that, then you're not eligible for state unemployment.
Okay.
So the employer's unemployment rate, because employment is, people will say, I paid into unemployment. No, you actually haven't. the
I
employer
pay your salary.
the employer pays unemployment. It's a form of state-sponsored insurance, like, and so the employee doesn't actually pay anything into unemployment. The employer pays for it. So your rates as an employer go up and down depending on how many claims you have, just like your insurance does. So if I can terminate somebody for cause, their claim against the unemployment won't be successful because it was their fault they got terminated. If I'm just terminating you because I don't have work or because I don't have the money or because I'm restructuring, then you can get unemployment because it's not your fault that you're being terminated.
Which one will piss you off more?
Which one pissed me off more?
I'm saying, like, Stan, you're fired because you told Nate that he's a jerk off or whatever, or you're in a mass pool of people and you're just a number and I'm just dumping you out. I would be more upset that you didn't fire me directly and that you lumped me together with these lemmings.
I don't know. I kind of think either way I'm losing my job. So
yeah, but if they fire you by yourself, you can go out in a blaze of glory and cause a scene. If you fire 150 people at one time, what are you going to do?
That's true.
I want it to be memorable. I want to set that building on fire.
I suppose you could still do that.
But I think,
unless they fire you by Zoom and you're at the house,
Well,
at
that's
your
what
own house, and you
wouldn't
say
that be
your
great?
own,
Local man burns his
house.
house and loses his job. Why'd they fire him? He's a pyromaniac.
I'll show you. I'm going to burn my friggin' house down.
I'm going to harm myself.
That'd be awesome.
I think that you take that Zoom culture that some people are just not sticking with. I hate it. But I think firing them that way, you have
It's
no...
very cold and impersonal.
You have no courage, but there's no fear. Right? Because I didn't have to bring you in the office.
I'm just looking at a camera. I'm in freaking Haiti. I don't have to...
What the hell kind of organization you run in Haiti that you're doing Zoom calls?
Do
you even know how the time works? I mean, you'd be 3 a.m. You got up to fire someone at 5
Haiti's
in the afternoon?
in the same time zone we're in.
Oh, you go to Haiti a lot? How about Epstein Island? Where are you traveling to? You open this box of worms. Is this a confession? Actually, I don't even know you could use this confession in court. Oh, sorry.
So,
I do know that because I'm a lawyer on a podcast.
So Haiti is on one side of the island. Dominican Republic's on the other side of the island.
Are you now talking to me like I don't know geography?
Yes.
Because to be honest with you, I didn't know where Haiti was.
I am specifically talking to you like you don't know geography.
Wait, do it with your fingies. Is Haiti here and the Dominican's here, or where is it?
So it's one island. The Dominican is on one side of the eastern side of the island.
That sounds racist.
And Haiti is on the western side of the island.
I'm sure some Dominicans could live there.
They may.
Okay, well, I think I taught you a thing or two. Let's just say we're tied. So that was, as a person that employs people, I thought that this would be important to bring up. But as people that are probably going to get screwed by their employer and let go, I thought you might say, here's a tip of the trade: steal the staplers. Like, what they have no. I guess if you don't see it coming, you have no protection.
Just because you're part of a rift doesn't mean that there's no protection for you. But it is more difficult in that situation to prove that there's some kind of company bias. If the company's stupid, like let's say that Google decided we're going to fire all of our Spanish-speaking employees. I think you would pretty much
champion that. You would say, good idea.
you would pretty much be able to show that there's some kind of bias there, right? Or if they decided to fire all of their female employees, or if they decided to fire all of their employees over 60 years old. If the RIF looks something like that, if it's biased in its makeup, then everyone has a cause of action. But if you can show, like if a person's being sexually harassed, for instance.
On this show, I feel it. Go on, but look up
Nate,
here.
Nate,
Look up here.
Nate.
Look in my eyes.
This
is his show, by the way. This is his show.
I've totally lost it here.
He brought up the Haiti thing, and now it's going on.
I just can't imagine you ever being sexually harassed.
Why do you think? Why do you think I wear these tight shorts everywhere, even during the winter? So if someone's being
goodness
sexually
gracious.
harassed, go on.
Yeah, so someone's if you're being sexually harassed and then they have a riff coming and they decide to terminate you because of and include you in that riff, your sexual harassment claim would still survive that. You still might have a cause of action for that, even though you may not have a wrongful termination action, but you still may have an action based upon the harassment. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And there are, it would be possible, I suppose, in that situation, if a person had been told over and over again, "You're too old. We want to get rid of you and get some young people," and then they use a reduction in force to get rid of the old person, then they immediately hire a young person to take their job. You could still probably show, you could probably show a wrongful termination in that case.
But if you eliminate that position, create another job title, and put a person there, the position's gone. So I eliminated that altogether.
Yeah, I mean, and again, that can't be that. That's not necessarily as easy and straightforward as it sounds. You can't just change one thing in the job description.
What I mean is, we know a case of a friend of mine that we were talking about where his position wasn't like marketing director per se, but he was the head of this department.
Right.
Well, we got rid of that department. It just happens to be the guy who worked in this department now is in charge of car parts.
Right.
But he never reports to that bill. Well,
right.
That's how, I think we were talking about non-competes a couple weeks ago. A guy worked in the mailroom for a year. He never came in. So he could be the sales manager of another station.
Right.
And they paid him. Or somebody was on the air, spent a year doing that. So they kept you in the fold so they could keep you.
Right.
Or they had it projected, but still paid you $300,000 not to come to work.
Right. Well, I mean, that kind of stuff can happen too. But in the case of the termination thing, in Ohio, Ohio is still technically an at-will state. So in Ohio, I can fire an employee for no reason, but I can't fire them for a wrongful reason.
Explain what a wrongful reason is.
I
don't like
you.
a
discriminatory reason. So I can't fire you because of your race, your religion, probably not for your sexual orientation, although that's still kind of an iffy. I can't fire you for your age, your gender. All of those things are protected classifications. So I can't fire you because of any of those things, but I can fire you because I don't like you.
I find that to be the oddest thing. Like, you could fire someone that all of those things are true, and you're just like, I just can't stand, like, you're bad for morale, go.
Yeah. You could do that as long as you can document that that's why. And as long as there's not a wrongful reason associated with the firing. So you can't say, I don't like you because you're Jewish. Or I don't like you because you're...
Could you say it that sheepishly? Get in here. You're fired because you're Hebrew? Do you have to give a reason as an employer why you're done?
You don't have to, but most people do. Most people recommend
But aren't you
it.
walking into that? I'm firing you because you're so hot?
If you if you state the reason, then you're at least articulating something supposedly. I mean, hopefully you're smart enough to state a reason that is a legal reason for terminating somebody. So you don't do your job well. You don't get along with the other employees. And typically you have some history of addressing the issues that you're firing the person for.
Do you know what a PIP is? Have you ever heard that? Performance review thing.
Yeah.
So what I always found funny was
It's usually a performance improvement plan.
Right.
That's what it stands for.
in that plan. So in media was okay. So you could tell when they were kind of done with
So
somebody.
you aren't making very much money. So you're going to make more money by selling more. That's your performance
So what they
improvement.
would say, because they couldn't just directly say, "Hey, you're not hitting your budgets."
Right.
If we don't, so say like in radio, and again, you're talking about 15, 20, it's kind of the same thing. There might be 11 people that bill $1 million in this market. So 4 of them might be in your building. Okay. If you have a big enough group, but that means you're between 400 and say 600,000 every year. So they could come in with it because you had a non-compete. So to get rid of you, but also so you couldn't work anywhere else. They weren't going to release you. They're just going to fire you. They would say, if you don't bill 20% more in 30 days, you're gone. Well, 4 of those days are weekends. You have 20 days to go find $1,000 a day, which is impossible, right? I mean, you could get lucky and get one. But what would happen is it had the opposite effect where someone would look for a job, like I'm going to go sell insurance or go sell medical or whatever. So they're kind of letting you know, like, we're going to fire you.
Right.
I never knew anybody who was able to get off of a PIP and stick around.
It's I would say in our experience, if we're at the point where we're putting actual performance improvements together, by the time that you do that, not very many people come back from that. Because by the time you get to that point, usually you're talking about something that you've addressed several times, and for whatever reason, the person is not able to correct the behavior. And so generally, by the time you get to the point where you're putting this in writing and saying, and unless you're a company that doesn't have good communication within in the middle or a good culture, because I suppose that I guess ultimately in my viewpoint, you should never be placing someone on a performance improvement that's a surprise, right? You should never come in and say, we are really unhappy with your ability to do X, or the fact that you do X, and they'll go, I had no idea. That should never happen, right? They should be going.
Oh, I think people are pretty aware. Like, I do shit work and no one's noticed yet, and then out of nowhere, it's like you get let go. I don't know how many people are actually getting let go that are doing great work. You're gonna find
it's
a
not
way.
very often. Not very often. Occasionally, you have something that happens. I mean, we have had situations where somebody did something that we had to address.
You as an employer.
Yeah, where somebody did something as an employee that we put us in a position where we have to do something now. We have to take an action because of what their action was.
If there is somebody that has a company right now that's listening, would you address, because you guys normally nip this in the bud right away.
Right.
Is the best thing to do is cut it off right then? I know there's a severity to
depends
it.
on the it depends on the severity of something.
But if it was pretty severe,
I mean, so you look at things. You look at things. Did it affect someone else? So did this person do something that could be considered harassment? If the person did something that could be considered harassment, depending on the situation and how severe it was, you may give a warning, but then if it happens again, you got to terminate. But then, depending on the severity, you might have to terminate at that point. Yeah. If this person just did something that's, you don't like it, it's annoying, but it's coachable, then maybe you try to coach it. If it's a performance issue, then you look at, okay, is this a training issue? Did we just not tell them that they need to do this way? Is this a tools issue? Do they not have the tools? Is it a workload issue, or is it a competence issue? Right. And, we usually keep a pretty short leash on those kinds of things. We'll start with, okay, you're doing this incorrectly. Here's how this needs to be done. Let's make sure that we've gone through and showed you how to do this and make sure that you understand what we're asking. And generally, we're like, okay, you need to do this correctly. And if we don't see improvement pretty quickly in that, then we start going, okay, well, obviously you can't do this. So we're going to move it on.
Or the other option is to tie them up like Old Yeller and take care of it that way. Thanks for covering all this today on your own show. Objections with Stan Willis.
I like to talk about what you want to talk about, Mike, because, I don't want you to cry.
Well, you're fired. See you next week.